So I started off with this standalone fireplace that you see here, and I wanted to make a stone fireplace that was going to be a permanent structure. And the things I wanted to accomplish in this project were recessed electric fireplace insert, recessed TV not directly mounted on the surface area. I wanted to use some kind of natural stone, and I want to add some accent lighting, some recessed accent lighting to this. And my biggest problem was weight constraint, since this is on the second floor. So what I first started doing was I got some plywood and I cut it out to the shape of the fireplace, and this is 1/2 inch thick plywood, and I pretty much transferred all my measurements onto the wall so I knew where the center point was at all times. And you can see I built this directly onto the floor that I had, the existing hardwood floor. Ideally maybe you would want to cut that out, but I didn't want to have the additional work. So I went ahead and I built it on top of the floor. As you can see here, the way I did this, because of the weight constraint and I was on the second floor, I did use a truss system. I probably should have removed the drywall in the back, and so my studs will line up and screw directly onto the stud. But I didn't want to do that work, so I figured that it wouldn't be a big deal to just go ahead and put these studs against the drywall and then nail them in and screw them in into the wall studs. This is an exterior wall and it's not really plumb, so you can see I used a lot of shims. And it's very important to make sure everything is level and plumb, especially the framing, because that's going to be how you're going to build this fireplace. And if your framing, your underlayer is not exactly plumb and leveled, everything is going to be off. So the most important thing is to make sure that everything is leveled. So at this point I felt really good at what I have accomplished and gave me more confidence to continue. I'm not a professional carpenter. And the way I did this project to make it easy for me is I did it in sections. As you can see, I did the bottom section first. I added 2 sections to the left and to the right, and I kept building up. And it's all 2x4 construction, 16 on center. And really, by doing this in sections, it just made things so much easier. I cannot emphasize how much easier it was. And just seeing the sections go up one at a time and seeing the framing being transformed into something that could potentially look like a fireplace. Here you can see where the fireplace insert is going to be, and it's very important, the rough opening for this fireplace, that you take into account the materials that you're going to use to wrap around and figure out how much room you're going to have for the insert. So when you're doing the rough opening, make sure you have at least 2 to 3 inches bigger on your rough opening than the actual fireplace. And here you can see I used heavy duty SDS connector screws, and that's how basically I nailed the framing onto the wall and then onto the stud that's behind the wall. You can see I added some blocking here for the TV recess. At this point, once the framing is all set, I was gonna use air stone, culture stone, and then somehow during the project my mind was made up to use natural thin veneers. And I just kept building this section by section. I found that to be the easiest way. You can see here on the right there's 3 sections. On the left there's 2 sections because the ceiling is at a slant. Again, all 16 on center construction, 2x4s. And here we get a better look at the blocking that I used and the truss system. I used extra support. Some of it is probably a little overkill, but I wanted to make sure this is going to stand the test of time, and I want to make sure that this is not going to collapse. As you can see here, I used the old fireplace to line it up and figure out how high the mantle was going to be on this new fireplace. And here you can see this stud right here is screwed to the wall, and then I have extra blocking in 5/8 just so the 2 columns are the same width, because on the left, the last stud on the left doesn't catch anything, so it's just there for blocking. And now I started off with a cement board. It was a 1/2 inch cement board, so I wanted to go ahead and add accent lighting. So I put 1 light in the center because I had all my measurements on the wall, so at any given point I knew what the center point was. So I put 1 light in the middle and then 2 to the sides, and this worked out perfectly. And I cannot stress enough how happy I am to put accent lighting, because when you use the accent lighting, it just gives it a different look. It just changes the whole perspective of the natural stone, as we'll see. And then the next thing to do was the mantle. I looked online. This mantle's going for $250 to $500. So I figured, let me buy some pine, which is what I did. To mount this, what I did was I took a 2x4, I stripped it, cut it at a 45, and made what's called a French cleat, which you can look up online how to do. Basically, that bottom piece is going to get screwed to the framing, and then the top catches on. So the top right here, as you can see, will catch onto this, and it'll prevent it from falling forward. And that's going to give it a lot more support. And this is called a French cleat. I'm sure there's other names, but that's what I use. And here you can see I tested it out, and it actually was pretty good. It was steady, even without any screws or anything like that, just using the French cleat system. And you can see there's a better look here on how I did it. That piece, the top piece, got glued to the mantle, and then the other piece was screwed into the framing. So as I was doing this mantle, I had an idea of putting some kind of light underneath the mantle to give it some accent light underneath the mantle. Here I'm pretty much finished with a cement board, and this was a paint to cut, but I measured it inside and cut it outside. And then all along the seams, you want to go ahead and put this fiber tape, which is what I did on the edges, anywhere there's a seam. You can see on the left corner here, I put a lot more because I needed to pad that out a little. So here we have the strip light, and that's what that channel was for. I'm putting the strip light on the channel. Here we see the controller, and this is going to be controlled by Alexa as well and by my phone. And then what I thought about inside, because of the weight constraint, I didn't want to put rock here on the back. So I bought these boards here from the hardware store, and I basically just went ahead and nailed them in because it's lighter, you know, save some weight. And they're gonna get nailed in to the back of that cement board right there, and to the top as well. This right here is where all the connections are right there for the electricity. The next step was to go ahead and look for the stones. There's many stones: culture stone, natural thin stones, and then I ended up finding this stone here at a local stone place, and this is local stone to my area. It's basically granite, and I just love the colors. And for the price of $1,700, for all the stone that I needed, it comes with the corners already cut for you. I thought it was a really good price, especially some of the cultured stone is very expensive. And then as you can see, it came here in 2 pallets, but as you can see, the stones are cut by hand, and they vary in shape. They're not perfect. You can see some of the corners here. They're cut by hand, not perfect at all, but this is stone, so it's natural stone. It's thin stone. It's about I would say 1.5 to 2 inches thick, and I let them acclimate a little bit in the house. And what I ended up doing is I did the corners first, and as I was doing the corners, it became apparent to me that I really did mess this up by using a white tin set. I should have really considered using a gray tin set, and I could already start to see some of the white thin set on the rocks, and I knew it's going to be a problem as we progress, that I have to clean, it's going to dry. And I hope you don't make this mistake. Get something that's going to match your grout lines, or something that's going to match the stone. I am going to use a gray grout here, and it would have made so much more sense to use a gray tin set, but you know, you learn from your mistakes, and I'm hoping this video you learn from my mistakes and you don't repeat them as well. But it's very important here to start off at the corners. I did put a little bit of as you can see there, some shims just to hold it up. And as you can see, I started building from the corners inwards. So with the bigger pieces of stone, I made an edge all around where the fireplace is going. I think that, you know, makes it look a little bit better, a little bit more finished look. And here on this column here, the biggest thing with this column is you want to make sure that it's very easy to put one stone on the left and one stone on the right, and then what ends up happening is you have a vertical line going down on the column, and you want to avoid that. So that right there took a lot more work to make sure that you are breaking the stones and you don't have a line going down where the column is. You want to stagger these stones. You don't want these stones to have like a line going down. And here what I'm doing is, my friend actually gave me this hard stone, so I didn't have to pay for this. It's pure granite, it's heavy. And what I'm going to do here is actually just use construction adhesive. In this case, it's just liquid nails is what I had. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this directly into the plywood. I was thinking of putting a piece of cement board here, but I went ahead and just glued it on there. And here you can see I'm finishing off putting those pieces of wood. Again, just to save weight, I put it on the back and I put it on the top. I wanted to keep the columns wrapped around in rock. Here you can see at the top, I try to create a nice little edge all around with some of the stones and make a little, kind of like a little design here on top. And here we get a different look at the column, and this is the first column I did. It's not, you can see there's a sort of a vertical. It's not as good as the other columns, but I was able to break this up by putting little stones where I saw the vertical line. And you can see here on the right column, I did a lot better job. It doesn't have that vertical line. Another thing, you want to make sure all these stones are leveled. You can see the small level on there. You want to make sure all of them are leveled. You don't want them to sag or to lean one way or another. Level the stones. Make sure you have your corners nice and even as possible. That makes a difference. And you can see some of the shims I have on the rocks here and there. And here you can see I added some more stones just to break that vertical. But I'm really glad that I bought these stones with the corners. It just makes your job so much easier and it looks more professional. Here we can see that it's pretty much done with the stone, and at this point I'm like, wow, it really came out good. Here we are finishing some of the electrical, and that's where I have that conduit right there. That's if I ever need to feed any HDMI or extra power wires. And what I did here on that wood, I went ahead and polyurethane it just to give it a little bit more protection. And here we get to one of the worst parts about this project, and it was to do the mortar. First of all, it was just everywhere. It made a mess, and what ended up happening is, as you can see here, the tip would get dry, so no mortar would come out. I would have to force some of the dry mortar out, squeeze a little bit out, and then redo it again. And once you stopped, if you stopped even for a second, the tip would get hard. So I don't know if anyone knows any tricks on how to prevent this, but this was a big problem for me. Not only did it make a mess, it was a little frustrating, but the tip kept getting hard. I had to keep squeezing the tip out. So after I clean out the grout, this is what it looks like. Alright, so now after scrubbing these rocks and getting rid of the excess mortar, you can see it's still pretty hazy. So what I'm going to do, and it's kind of dusty in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cleaning this with some warm water. Once I was finally happy with the color after cleaning it, it was time to put things together, and you can see I got a 55-inch Sony Bravia, I got a HD antenna, and then I got the Echo Gear TV bracket. And you really need this TV bracket if you're going to have a recessed TV. You need the Echo Gear. And at this point, it took me 8 months for this project to finish, mainly working on the weekends, and this is what the final result looked like. So at the end, I was really happy how this project turned out, and it was, to me, it looks a lot better than the standalone fireplace, and it's going to add value to the house. And this project cost me around, I want to say, $3,000 to $4,000, about $3,500 to $4,000. So this added value to the house. It looks better than the standalone fireplace, and I'm quite happy with it. So if you found this video informative and you got some information out of this, please share the video, put a thumbs up, and just leave a comment. Tell me what you would do different. Tell me where I messed up or didn't mess up. I'd love to hear your comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel as I talk about and make videos about all sorts of different subjects. So I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.